it so that all health birth attendants and school children can wash their hands.
Okay. Honorable Portia, you've been in office for more than 2 years now as Minister of Water Development and Sanitation. How would you describe the situation in Zambia in terms of realizing goal number 6, which is clean water and sanitation?
Obviously, person, the population is not static. It keeps on progressing. So obvious, there lies in a challenge to ensure that you continue expanding the supply of water in terms of services, but also sanitation. So we are sitting around 72% in terms of water access to the various citizens. Then we are around 52% in terms of sanitation services. But there's more work to be done in the peri-urban setups. There's also more work to be done in the rural areas. So in terms of where we are sitting, this is where we are sitting, but efforts have now been made. You realize that in the past, the focus in terms of water provision, the focus in terms of sanitation services was mainly around the urban and peri-urban. But we've extended the mandate of our CUs to ensure that they also cover the rural areas. All this is being done in an effort to ensure that we are more inclusive, but also we reach out more to all our citizens, including those in the rural areas, because those are more stressed in terms of water and sanitation challenges.
All right, let me move on. You've brought up a very important aspect to do with rural areas. And we do have a member of parliament coming from a rural constituency in Western Province, that's Mwandi.
Which I was privileged to visit, to tour in January. Yeah, so you can as well say you have 2 members of parliament speaking for Mwandi. Yeah.
Mr. Polo, how are you responding in your constituents in terms of provision of water and good sanitation in your constituents in realizing SDG number 6, which is clean water and sanitation?
Thank you so much, Porcent. In regards to rural constituencies, especially like a constituency where I come from, there's still a lot that has to be done. Because when you talk about Mwandi, like I think I mentioned prior, Mwandi has 6 of my wards sit on saline water. That means that even when we plan through the Constituency Development Fund for us to extend services, borehole water, we still have that challenge, the water is saline. So there's still a lot that has to be done through the ministry. Like the minister said, he actually visited Mwandi. But so far, as we sit, there's still a lot that has to be done. And let me also make mention that, one of the saddest thing is that Mwandi has flash floods. So during October, November, December, we have flash floods, and then 3 months later people have no access to water. So when it comes to rural constituencies, I think that there's a lot that we have to do as a government to invest in water harvesting projects in rural constituencies where we have saline water, and see how that can work out instead of us just always investing in boreholes. And also Mwanje sits by the banks of the river. Mwandi, just Zambia's river passes through Mwandi. So it's always very, very disheartening that our people cannot have access to water, despite all these things that have been given to us that we can tap into. So, but those are projects that we cannot carry in CDF because of how expensive those projects are. So we know that the Ministry of Water and Sanitation is also burdened, but we are looking forward to us as a country in investing in those projects so that water services are extended to rural areas and sanitation. Those go hand in hand.
Having realized the challenges that you face in Mwandi, and you talked about having flash floods, 3 months later people do not have access to clean water in your constituency. You being a lawmaker, what measures have you put in place, long-term measures, to make sure that the people of Mwandi are catered for in terms of water provision and good sanitation?
So like I earlier indicated, for the areas where we have fresh waters, we've invested in solar-powered boreholes. So I'm very, very proud to say that with the increment of CDF, I'll give you an example of an area that I went to called Luanza. Luanza, since independence, or since forever had never seen not even a single drop of water. But through the CDF, we took solar-powered boreholes, and as we're speaking right now, they have running water. This is exactly what we're doing to schools and communities in our constituency. But for those areas where we have saline water, we still have a challenge, and a lot has to be done. So we did a report that I extended to the Minister of Water and Sanitation from Mwandi to see how we can help our people. But honestly speaking, Paulson, a lot still has to be done. In as much as we're planning through CDF to have all this done, and I'm happy that I'm also meeting the WASH director from UNICEF. We see how they can help our rural communities. Really, really, our people are in need. And you know what fresh water can do? You can grow your vegetables. That means that those areas where there's saline water, they can't even have a garden. They can't grow just even a simple vegetable because the water is saline. But when you provide this water, you know, just the access to water, it also actually works on poverty alleviation because they can grow vegetables, they can sell vegetables. There's a lot that comes with having access to water.
This is a live show, and the best thing that you can do is send us your text messages. I'll be able to read your text messages. The number that we're using for live texting is 0978 772801. That's 0978 722801. We'll be able to read those text messages. Make sure that you summarize your text message. If you have any question, you can also post those questions on that platform. Better still, we can also use our Facebook page. That's the National Assembly of Zambia Facebook page. Like that page, let us know where you're watching us from. And also worth mentioning that our sign language interpreter for today, we do have Chola Kauma there doing her thing. Before I move on to Engineer Rand, let me get to the Honorable Minister. You did talk about you having visited Mwandi, and I'm sure you visited other rural constituencies and urban constituencies. How is the situation on the ground coming from the Minister?
There are a lot of challenges, like I said in my earlier remarks, both in the rural and the peri-urban, because of a number of factors. One is that for a long time there's been low investment in the sector, in the water sector. And obviously with the low investment, it means that you are not responding to the population growth at a rate that is desired, but also the infrastructure is quite old. So you find that even in areas where you have the service, the water supply service, you find that the infrastructure, the network is quite old. The treatment plants, the pumps are quite old, so often at time you have breakdowns, you have leakages. The same applies to the sanitation services. So all these bring in a lot of challenges, and ultimately the people who should be receiving the services, who desire to have water supplied to them in good time and also improved hours of supply, are not getting that. So what are we doing? We are putting more resources progressively. We are gradually we are increasing allocations to the sector to ensure that we respond to the population growth by extending the networks, both sanitation and also the water supply, but also to repair the dilapidated network. Yeah, but the challenges are still there, and quite a lot.
Are you happy with the 2024 national budget, the allocation, the water and sanitation sector? We know that health, education have received quite a good amount in terms of an increment as compared to last year, because water is life.
Yes.
And
yes.
All these sectors, they depend on water.
Yes.
But are you happy as a minister
yes.
of water development and sanitation about the allocation that was given?
Yes, I'm happy in the context that I would want to demand for more. But you see, there are various competing needs. You need resources in agriculture, you need resources in the health sector, you need resources for livestock and various sectors. So you can only ask for so much. Yeah, but otherwise I would have loved to ask for more in comparison to the challenges on the ground. But we have to acknowledge that other sectors also have to be accommodated. So I'm happy with the allocation in the 2024 budget.
Engineer Andy, From the UNICEF perspective, how would you rate Zambia in terms of realizing SDG 6?
Look, Zambia has made commendable progress on SDG 6 and also the 8th National Development Plan. So I think that's important to note. There's some good examples. Water, as the Honorable Minister said, has increased from 51% to 74% from the year 2000 to 2020, so to 2020, sorry. So this is great progress, and we should really celebrate that. I think, as both honorable MPs said, basically there's more work to be done, and I really am grateful that you both brought out that inequity between rural and urban. That's really where some more work needs to be done. 55% of the rural population in Zambia rely on unimproved water sources, while only 23% of the urban population relies on those types of unimproved water sources.
Okay. So you being in the country, before the program, you and I were chatting, and you did talk about you being in Zambia for more than a year now. Yeah. Which area, I'm sure you've done some survey across the country, which area do you really think that needs urgent attention in terms of water provision and good sanitation?
Well, honestly, we've done some mapping of how climate change will impact different parts of Zambia. And we looked at the whole country and did some really deep maps on where there will be more consecutive dry days, and yet at the exact same time where we're going to end up with more intense heavy rainfall events. And so I think that we really need to invest in those areas. As the Honorable MP stated, those flash floods coming, and then all that investment in sanitation that people have already made, those households, they built their sanitation, and yet it doesn't withstand that floods. So I think really we need to look at how climate change is going to affect Zambia and how we can invest to really have resilient resources moving forward.
Mr. Fuller, we talked about rural constituencies, and the one biggest challenge that rural constituencies face is open-defecation. How are you addressing that challenge? Because it's very key when it comes to sanitation.
Extremely. I grew up in a rural setup myself, just to make mention, and we are encouraging. We have what we're calling the VIP toilets, and we're encouraging all our rural communities to have that. But also another part that I want to touch, being a woman, and also that I'm very, very much interested in girls and keeping them in school. You know, when you talk about SDG 6, access to water and sanitation, when you go to these rural areas, you should see how children fail to go to school. The girl child fails to go to school at the time of the month because they cannot access water. You know, when they go to these schools, there's no access to water. So children opt not to go to school. They will stay for a week not having gone to school. So that's a week in a month. Count it in a year. There's so much that they're missing. So there is a lot that is linked to water, that to SDG 6, that just any, you know, when children don't have access to water and sanitation, there's a lot of impact that happens in their lives that, you know, you cannot see the coloration, but they're actually very, very colorated. So very, very important. And what we're doing is encouraging our rural communities to build, you know, standard, what we call VIP toilets. So that is also being done in schools and other areas.
Honorable, the program of open defecation, more especially in rural areas, what measures have you put in place as a Zambian government to discourage? I know African countries are trying by all means to make sure that there is no open defecation in these areas. But as a ministry, what programs have you put in place?
Thank you. Before I answer that person, I know that we are discussing SDG number 6, and we just went straight into saying SDG number 6. And for a person out there will be asking, what is SDG number 6? What are they talking about? So under the UN systems, we are part of the UN as Zambia, as a country, and we subscribe to various programs, and among them the SDGs. So we have about 17 SDGs, and today we are talking about SDG number 6, which speaks to not only ensuring availability of water and sanitation, but it emphasizes the fact that there must be universal access to clean water and adequate sanitation by, you know, for all by 2030. So we are marching towards 2030 with this target to ensure that there must be universal access to clean water. So there's emphasis there. Now, in ensuring that we achieve that target of ensuring adequate sanitation services for all our citizens, in the rural areas, we are trying to end this vice of open defecation. And what we have done as government is to work with various chiefdoms, various traditional leaders, but also with cooperating partners, UNICEF and others, to ensure that information goes out on the dangers of this practice. People go into the bush and answer the call of nature, and then you have flies all over which end up going to sit on food if it's not properly stored or secured. And in the process, this leads to a spread of diarrhea diseases, but also just unhygienic practices. So what we have done as government, first of all, is to provide information which speaks to the dangers of such practices. And we are happy that the traditional rulers, the traditional leaders, we are also happy that the members of parliament, the councillors, have been given this information so that their people in the rural parts understand the dangers of this and how it can impact their lives by way of having so many diarrhea cases. Because you know that most of the deaths as a result of, particularly among the infants, as a result of diarrhea cases. So the moment we provide information and people begin to see that there's a danger in us going to answer the call of nature in the bush, we are actually increasing the prospects of having so many diseases in the villages. Secondly, like she has said, we had been rolling out programs with cooperating partners to provide, various cooperating partners to provide VIP toilets, so that people should be using toilets as opposed to going to answer the call of nature in the bush, in the bushes. But we are now moving into another phase. You know that we've said that we must now migrate from VIP toilets to waterborne facilities. So this government, other than just providing this information, we are also providing resources to ensure that in rural areas, particularly in public facilities, we provide decent sanitation facilities. But the provision of water is heavily linked to decent sanitation. You know, where there is water, you know that people, after using the toilet, they wash their hands. You know that where there is water, people will strive to ensure that they build for themselves decent toilets. So there's a heavy linkage between the availability of water, sufficient supply of water, and also the provision of sanitation services. So where you put water, there's a high possibility that people will strive very hard to ensure that they have decent toilets. Okay. So these are moving together, the provision of water and sanitation services. But to say that we are putting more resources as government in various locations, both peri-urban and rural areas, so that people can have decent sanitation facilities.
Let's read some of the text messages that you've been sending. Remember, we do have 3 text messages. The number that we are using is 0978 720 801. That's 0978 772 801. Let's get to our screens and see the text messages that we have. Good morning. I'm enjoying your nice transmission. Thank you so much, Henry Musole from Mongu in Western Province. Let's move on to the other one. Kindly help us in Chingombe area of Luano district with water supply. Honorable, I'm sure you're taking note of that text. The other one coming from Alfred from Lusaka. We need more water in Jack Minister. So so that we can have a clean water sanitation as well. Okay, as we head to, is it
As
before
well
2030?
here, as well here for 2030.
Okay, all right, some typo there. Make sure that you summarize your text message. Would you want to respond to Luano there? They
Yes.
don't have water. I'm sure
Yes.
it's similar to what Honorable Sefulo is talking about in
Yes.
Mwandi. It's a similar
Yes.
situation. But before you respond, the number that we're using is 078772801. Keep sending those text messages. Better still, you can also use our Facebook page, the National Assembly of Zambia. Like that Facebook page and let us know where you are watching us from. We're discussing SDG 6, which is clean water and sanitation. And my guest on today's program, I do have the Honorable Minister of Water Development and Sanitation, who is also Munali Member of Parliament, and this is Honorable Mike Mposha. And I also have Engineer Emily Rand, United Nations Children's Funds. She is Chief of Water, Sanitation and Hygiene, WASH in short, and Ms. Siweso Sefulo, MP for Mwandi Parliamentary Constituency. So let's maybe quickly you can respond to those two text messages, one in Luano, the other
Yes.
one in Mongo.
Okay. In Rwano, maybe collectively, I want to say that other than what government is doing to drill boreholes in various parts of the rural setup of our country, and also providing piped water schemes in various chiefdoms, we are also encouraging that the residents of Rwano must be engaging their WDCs, their councillors and members of parliament to ensure that their challenges in those areas can be attended to by the now increased CDF. We have urged members of parliament, and I think we are in agreement that we must prioritize issues of water and sanitation under the CDF. So in areas where they don't have boreholes in rural areas, please reach out to your ward development committees so that as we plan now for 2024, you can say in this area we don't have water, we need a borehole. And your MP sitting with the CDF committee will approve the recommendations which will have been given to the ward development committees.
Okay.
Meanwhile, the government will continue from the central government to ensure that in all the districts, in all the provinces, we continue providing resources that will ensure that we close in the gap in terms of water supply and sanitation services.
Okay. Engineer Randy, I know the Honorable Minister talked about the targets and talked about universal access to water when it comes to SDG number 6. It's got quite a number of targets, which are 8 in total, and we have 11 indicators. Do you think Zambia will be able to achieve SDG 6 before 2030?
Well, thank you for talking about all 11 indicators. I think it is really important. I often only talk about WASH, and when I say WASH, I mean the water, sanitation, and hygiene indicators, but it's really important to note and keep in mind the other ones. And so one of those is actually community participation in water and sanitation. So I think it was really interesting how the Honorable MP just brought up the Constituency Development Fund and that opportunity for really community participation in their water and sanitation services. And so I hope that everyone watching and listening today will take this as a call to have their own activity. What are you doing in your community? We talked about the toilets. I think we all know community members who are vulnerable or family members who need help upgrading their toilet to survive and really be climate resilient. I think we also all can think about protecting our own source of water. Does your community need a fence around that original water source so that we're protecting it for the long term? Or really just more simple, our commercial water utilities that the MP mentioned need the bills to be paid. You know, water is a right, but pipes cost money. And so we all need to pay those bills to either our water user committee or the commercial utility or the water trust so that they can really maintain those services, making sure that they're still operating and maintaining.
All right. Let me get to Mr. Fulo. I know we keep talking about rural constituencies and schools. They face a huge challenge when it comes to provision of this commodity of water. Are you engaging various stakeholders to make sure that even just the borehole is done, maybe at a centrally located place that will cater for more schools in that particular ward in your constituency?
Yes, but to cater for more schools, you know, like I've said, Mwandi is very, very vast, so our schools, are not closely spaced. But yes, we also have cooperating partners that are currently working in Mwandi, and one of the things that the great work that they're doing is the provision of water and sanitation. So we are very, very grateful to them, and they're targeting public places and schools. So currently, when you go to these facilities where you have access to water, where you can have freshly drilled water, you find we have, flushable toilets right in the rural areas. So yeah, that is being done, and also through CDF, like I indicated earlier. One of the things that we've done is to make sure that we engage our communities and sensitize them so that their priorities are ahead. And one of the priorities that a lot of them have is access to water. So in areas where we're able to find fresh water, we've made sure that we've drilled solar-powered boreholes. So we no longer have the hand pumps. We're not doing hand pumps in one right now. What we want are solar-powered boreholes, so that it's easier for us to also connect the communities that are near to where we drill the boreholes from. So, for example, we have a borehole in Luanza. It doesn't just cater for the school, but it goes also to cater for the neighboring villages that are near the school. So that's exactly what we're doing. So in other areas where we have fresh water, that is being done. But like I've indicated, there's still a lot that needs to be done in areas where we have saline water.
What about the president in 2021, when it was official opening of Parliament? He did talk about the completion of Kafulafuta Dam, and it's something that is so passionate, water provision, more especially in rural constituents. Let me just say Zambia as a whole. Where are we in terms of having these dams dotted across the country?
Thank you, Paulson. I want to say that the president, beyond Kafulafuta water supply project, is very passionate about issues to do with water and sanitation. And this is why you will notice that before this government came in, the water component was just part of the function. This ministry had various functions, including environmental protection. But to focus on our SDG number 6 and to ensure that we push the WASH programs positively, the president decided to dedicate a ministry basically to focus on water supply and sanitation. And this is how this ministry was created, and removed the other functions elsewhere so that we can just focus on issues to do with water supply and sanitation. So just to emphasize that he's more passionate beyond just one project. Now, talking about the Kafulafuta, which is one of our big projects on the Copper Belt, where are we? We've made progress. This is a project that had stalled for many years, and the president promised that immediately I get into office, we'll turn around this project. And indeed, we have reactivated that project as we speak. By December, our target is to complete this project by December. Come January, we'll be doing the pressure testing, and we hope that we can, between January and February, we'll be able to commission and begin to supply water to the various districts of Ndola, various districts of the Copper Belt, including Ndola, Mpongwe, Masaiti, Luansha.
All right. Let's see if we do have some text messages. The number that we are using, if you wish to participate, is 0978 772801. All right. Still waiting for those text messages, and I do have some Facebook messages. This one comes from Otilia Mujinga, watching from Mwinilunga. Thank you so much, Mujinga, for being part and parcel of today's SDG and U program. Whitson Kapesa, watching you from Mazabuka in Southern Province. Thank you so much. We also have Cabo Justin from Chiengi in Luapula Province, and I have Gracious Andrew Levitina. You are within Lusaka. So keep sending those text messages. The number is 0978 772801. Like I mentioned, we are discussing a very important goal, which is goal number 6, clean water and sanitation.
So, person, just Just in addition to the Kafulafuta water supply
Yes.
project, there are various projects that the President has directed us to ensure that we complete. And I'm happy that as we are going towards completing the Kafulafuta water project, we have also started allocating resources to the Nkana Water Supply and Sanitation Phase 2 project, which will also see to it that there's improvement of water supply around Kitwe and the surrounding towns. I'm happy to also say that we recently completed the Kafue Bulk project, which is Iolanda 2, which during this shutdown is the one which is assisting us to supply us with the 70,000 cubic meters of water per day in Lusaka, which is about, we are talking about 70 million liters per day. So this was completed and commissioned. I'm also happy to mention that we are making a lot of progress with the Integrated Small Towns Water Supply and Sanitation Project, which you may wish to know that these are dotted around the Northern Province, Muchinga, Luapula, and Western Province. Once these projects are commissioned, there will be a lot of improvement in terms of water supply, but as well as sanitation services.
As much as you make these strides in realizing goal number 6 Honorable Minister, the biggest cry from the general public has been these utility companies. We've received phone calls, our mothers, fathers, complaining of poor water supply in various parts of this country. And this is due to the poor service that is being delivered by utility companies across the country. How do you feel looking at these utility companies, the poor service that they render to the people?
Yeah, admittedly so, that our 11 CUs are extremely overwhelmed. Not too long ago, we were dealing with 10 to 12 million people, the whole country. Now we are over 19.4 million people. So when you look at the jump in terms of population from where we were a few years ago and where we are now, in comparison to what has been injected, what we have been injecting into the water sector, you find that the ratio there in terms of what you are putting in versus the population you are supposed to service has not been very desirable. This is why I said that this government is trying to gradually increase the allocations to the sector. But you must also understand, like I said earlier, that most of our CUs are operating on extremely dilapidated infrastructure. That is one. But you must also know that for more than 3 years, this sector, in terms of tariffs, compare what is happening to the fuel. Fuel, all of us are paying the reflective cost, the actual cost. When you look at the water sector, for more than 3 years, the tariffs have not been adjusted. And when you look at the cost of materials, chemicals for treating water, look at the energy cost. The past 3 years, how it has evolved in terms of the increments, and yet the tariffs are still static. Why? Obviously, any adjustment, the people who complain. That is one thing. The other is also the culture of not paying bills on time. You can have a list of what you need to pay, even in our homes, a person, probably even among us here. When you have a list of what you need to pay, you'll be able to buy your talk time, you'll be able to put fuel in your car, you'll be able to pay school fees, that's fine. You'll be able to pay your energy costs, that's fine. On your list, the water bills will be the last. And yet we know that you and me can stay the whole day probably without food. We can endure, but you will not stay the whole day without water.
All right, before Mr. Fulo comes in, maybe this question would want you to lay a foundation,
yes,
direct it to you, and before engineer comes in, how are you making sure that drinking water services is located on the premises, it's available when needed, and it's safe from contamination as a ministry? I'm sure after your response, Mr. Fulo will come in and respond.
Come again with that question. How are we?
Your ministry,
yes,
how are you making sure that drinking water services are located on premises, closer to the people, available.
Yes, yes.
And it's available when needed, and it's free from contamination.
Okay. One of the things we are doing, depending on the location, is that you must be connected to a service. So there has to be a network, you must be connected to a service, and water will be pumped to your doorstep. Whereas in other areas like rural areas, if the population is sparsely, we have to provide boreholes, hand pump boreholes. I know that over the time, even the MP for Manda said we are not doing boreholes equipped with hand pumps. But they are also necessary in certain areas where the population is sparsely arranged. You need to put a borehole at a central point and people converge and draw water. But in chiefdoms where you have in growth centers where you have a huge population in one place, what is desired in there and what we are doing as a ministry is to provide piped water schemes where you drill a borehole, put an elevated tank, and then you begin to supply, you put a network into various points. So 3, 4, 10 households go into, they'll have their own tap and draw water from there.
The aspect of contamination?
The aspect of,
I'll give an example
yes,
of Chalala.
yes.
There's a borehole in this yard. The next yard there's a pit latrine. There's a soccer.
Yes.
Yeah. How are you making sure that
So,
the water that people are drinking is free from contamination?
Before I go specifically to the Chalala one, let me...
Just an example.
Yes, yes, which I appreciate. I want to say generally what we do in supplying water, we make sure that at different intervals, the water we are supplying is treated. Let's talk about Lusaka, for example. We are bringing water from Kafue using 2 pipelines. At a particular point, from Kafue to Chilanga, the water must be treated. It will be dosed. So from Kafue itself, the water is being treated. After you draw the water from Kafue, you abstract the water, it's treated in Kafue. As it moves around Chilanga, we have to treat again. From Chilanga into town, Stewart Park, we have to treat again. So at different points, we are treating, and this is to eliminate the possibility that as you are transporting, as you are pumping this water, there could be a possibility of contamination, so you have to treat. In rural areas, for example, before I come to the Chalala example, what we are encouraging the people, where we have piped water schemes, in the tank where we are pushing the water from the borehole into the tank, we must put chlorine in there. Then when the water goes into the households, we also encourage as a ministry, working with cooperating partners, we send messages that where you are storing the water, you must make sure that the storage facilities are clean, but where you are in doubt, please put chlorine. Okay, if you don't have chlorine, boil the water. Now, for the Chalala one.
Just before you come to Chalala, I'm sure there are questions that we've received via SMS. Let's accommodate our viewers and our listeners out there. Remember the number that we're using if you wish to participate on today's program. While we're looking at SDG 6 is 0978 77201. So let's see some of the text messages that we've been sending. And this one comes from Wadi, all the way from Mansa. Nice and informative program. Good morning. Thank you so much, Wadi, for that text message. Good to know that you're enjoying the program. Morning, we are enjoying the show in Mansa. All right, that's Mansa doing so well. Good morning, Minister. It's a good program being taken, especially in rural areas. With the coming up of the CDF, much orientation is needed, especially to the local leaders. Thank you so much. The other text message, good morning and how are you, Honorable? Water is life and we need water every day. Rural areas must be provided with water. Many schools in Ikeleng district of Northwestern don't have water. Thank you so much. Let's see if we still have some more. This one reads, we are facing water problems in Sesheke, but Zambezi River is near Sitali Menda. Thank you so much, Sitali. Okay, so those are some of the text messages that you've sent to us. Keep sending those text messages. Remember, the number that we're using is 0978 772 I know, Honorable, you didn't finish your line of thought, but allow me just to push in Mwandi, Member of Parliament. I know we've talked about soccer wells, septic tanks, but in rural areas, it's a different scenario. They are shallow wells. and human beings share water with animals. Honorable Seful, your reaction to that? How are you doing to make sure that the water that is being given to the local people is free from contamination?
Thank you so very much, Paulson. Honestly speaking, in rural areas, as you've indicated, there's still a lot that has to be done. Like I earlier mentioned, in areas where where people are still doing shallow wells, and then that's the water that is being shared with the people and everyone else. And also, actually, when the rain season comes, that's the water. With the rain, they have these, man-made dams, or the dams that they dig, and that's where they collect the water. And really, when it comes to the quality of the water, the water that the people in the rural areas are doing, are using, you find that there's no assurance in regards to the quality of water that is being used. But let me come to the ones now, the systems that are being done through CDF. Like I've indicated, we are doing the solar powered boreholes, and then we are using, of course, we are encouraging them to use chlorine, and making sure that when you're storing your water in your containers, make sure that the containers are clean. But as I've indicated, even when you're telling someone from the rural area to say that, put chlorine. Sometimes they don't even have access to that chlorine. So what we're encouraging them to do is to boil the drinking water. Boil before you use your water, or for any other use that drinking, anything that you're using. Please make sure that the water is boiled, because sometimes even access to chlorine in the village is not that easy.
I know we don't have enough time, but let me also move on to, before the minister responds to the Chalala issue and some of the concerns that we read via text messages. What programs have you put in place as WASH, looking at the many challenges that have been highlighted that Zambia is facing?
Okay, well, I just have to give the shout out and the physical shout out to boil
Yes.
or treat your water
Yes.
in those rural areas where you don't have commercial utilities treating your water,
Yes.
So thank you for that message, because I think again it's up to all of us. We all have actions that we need to take. So what is UNICEF doing? I think before I say anything about UNICEF, I just have to give a shout out to all that the government is doing. Honestly, we work with WASH technicians and environmental health technicians at the healthcare facilities. And what they're doing is motivating households to build their own toilets. And this last year alone, that motivated 500,000 households to build their own toilet. We're also working with those WASH coordinators at the district level. Those are the true heroes of SDG 6. They are the ones out there protecting water sources, and also they worked again together with us to last year provide 200,000 households with a new water source, be it those boreholes, yes, in those really remote areas, or small piped water schemes.
All right. Honorable, quickly, maybe
Yes.
the issue to do with Chalala, and we had a message coming from Mikelengi.
Yes.
Just stay near the Zambezi.
Yes. Yes.
That's in Sesheke.
Yeah. Sesheke, it's true. There are problems there of water, and this is why we are running to complete one project which is already over 90% complete under the Integrated Small Towns project. So once that project is commissioned in the next few months, the challenges in Sesheke will be the thing of the past. Yeah, so we have a project in that Sesheke, we have one coming up in Senanga, we have Mongo, we have Kaoma in Western Province. This is where we are implementing those projects. Coming to the challenges in Chalala, yes, the water and sanitation situation in Chalala is a disaster, because people are sitting on very small plots, like 600 square meters, and within there they have a borehole and they have sanitation facilities. And you know that underground there are no borders, there are no boundaries. So the possibility that this water eventually will be mixing, or it's already mixing, is very high. So as government, we are working towards coming up with another treatment plant and another line all the way from Kafue, and these plans have advanced. I will not preempt what we are doing, but just to indicate that we are bringing another pipeline which will be dedicated to sort out the Chalala area all the way up to the M phase. And we hope that we can now migrate people from depending on boreholes in Chalala to water supply. But Lusaka generally has a demand for water of 480 million liters per day. And our capacity currently is 306 million liters per day. So we have a deficit of about 174 million liters per day. So we need to close in this gap. And this is why we are working towards looking for resources to develop another treatment plant and another network pipeline all the way from Kafue to bring in more water to close in on this deficit.
Technocrats have proposed the issue to do with harvesting rainwater.
Yes.
I know Honorable Sefulo talked about having flash floods in
Yes.
our constituency, but if government came up with a massive project where we can harvest rainwater, I think this will be history.
Yes.
What measures have we put in place to make sure that, because I've heard the Republican president talking about harvesting
Yes.
rainwater.
Yes.
Where are we as a country as we conclude?
Yes, you will notice that in the budget for 2024, I think we are doing around 38, we are planning to do about 30 dams throughout the country. So this is already speaking to the directive by His Excellency the President that we must harvest water. So what we need to do is to do some feasibility studies so that we know this dam we are constructing here, what is its intention? What is its target? Is it for irrigation? So if it's for irrigation, you know in this area it will be for irrigation. In this area you have people are rearing, cattle, so they need water for cattle rearing. So we'll be providing various, water harvesting infrastructure in terms of dams to cater for different purposes. So this we are already doing. This year alone we are working on around 16 dams dotted around the water-stressed provinces. Then 2024 we'll do a bit more, and we hope 2025
So
we can increase
which
the
are
number.
those provinces, very quickly, Honorable? Water-stressed provinces? For the sake of the viewers.
Yes, mainly it's the southern province, western, then central eastern province. When you go to northwestern, you go to Luapula. Fortunately, there the water bodies are quite plenty, so one problem solved. I think in those areas the issue is now producing water in terms of abstracting, treating it, and providing it to the people. Yeah.
Engineer Emily Rand, your concluding remarks. I know it's been great having you on the program and just to have to listen to the experiences that you've had as WASH.
I guess my concluding remarks is just that I'm so hopeful for Zambia. There's just such good leadership here and such dedication among the community members themselves, but also those local authorities to improve sanitation and hygiene. So I'm very hopeful. And I guess I just want to say to our audience and viewers again, we need you. What will you do to improve water and sanitation in your community?
Honorable Sefulo, the people of Mwandi are looking to you as a solution to the water blues that have been experiencing in Mwandi constituency. Your assurance before 2030. We know that these SDGs will expire come 2030.
Thank you so much, Paulson. To the people of Mwandi, I want to reaffirm that we are very, very committed in making sure that everyone in the constituency or in the district has access to water. And like the minister indicated, he made a trip to Mwandi to come and see the challenges that we're facing. And I have no doubt in my mind whatsoever that the challenges that we have will definitely be resolved. So to my people, just hold on a little bit. It shall be done.
Honorable, you're wearing two hats. Munadi constituency member of parliament, and a huge responsibility that you've been given to handle this very sensitive ministry, the ministry that has to do with life, water.
Yes.
I want you to look in the camera and assure the people of Munadi and Zambia about Zambia realizing goal number 6, which is clean water and sanitation.
Yes, it is our desire that by 2030 we will be able to achieve what we've set out. It is important that we provide water to most of our citizens, and this must be done. This cannot be achieved by government alone, and this is why I want to end by really acknowledging the massive support that we are receiving from our various cooperating partners, UNICEF, the German government, the various water aid, World Vision, Living Waters, various cooperating partners out there have been out there to support us each time we come to Parliament and say this year we are going to do this. Most of the support is actually coming from the cooperating partners. And I think that working together with the cooperating partners, the members of Parliament, but the citizens themselves, in ensuring that when CDF money is being disbursed, the residents there should ensure that they prioritize issues of water, issues of sanitation as they propose projects. In Munali constituency, I want to assure the people there that just like I'm serving the whole country, Munali will not be left behind. I know the challenges of water in Kalikiriki. I know the challenges of water in Chainda compound. I know the challenges of water in Kamanga and other places. So as we go towards 2030, we are carrying Munali along to ensure that they too also are provided with adequate clean water, but also sanitation services.
I was a follow. And Engineer Rand, thank you so much for making an appearance on today's program. Honorable Minister as well, thank you so much for sparing your precious time just to be with us and talk about these very important.
Yeah, thank you once again for having me here.
There you have it. That's today's SDG and You program. We're looking at goal number 6, which is clean water and sanitation. My guest on today's program were the Minister of Water, Development and Sanitation, and this is Honorable Mike Imposha, who is also Munali Member of Parliament. We also had Mwandi, a Member of Parliament, and this is Ms. Siweso Sefulo. And we had Engineer Emily Rand from the United Nations Children's Fund, Chief of Water, Sanitation and Hygiene. That's WASH. I'd like to say thank you so much to our viewers and our listeners and those of you that have participated by way of just watching and listening and way of sending in those text messages. We'll be back next week on Wednesday at 08:35 as we look at yet another interesting goal from the 17th Sustainable Development Goals. My name is Kosen Tindovi. Keep watching and listening to Parliament.
You can now advertise on Parliament Television and Parliament Radio. For more information, call 0977 854102 or 0977 536487. Parliament Television, bringing Parliament closer to you.
Presiding officers have continued a program of work to familiarize themselves with operations at all the constituency offices across the country. The first Deputy Speaker of the National Assembly of Zambia, Honorable Malungo H. Sangano, MP, accompanied by some staff of the National Assembly, undertook a tour of some constituencies in Southern Province. Madam First Deputy Speaker and Entourage made the first stop at Magoya Constituency Office in Mazabuka District and was met on arrival by Area Member of Parliament, Mr. Mwemba Malambo, MP. As a general practice has been, Mr. Malambo gave a quick background of the office in his welcoming remarks.
Madam Deputy Speaker, This office, like you have seen, is a rented facility. And out of that, I want to indicate to say that we have a plot that was allocated to ourselves, where we are trying to see if we would find resources to build our office. And we have done all the necessary things that are supposed to be done to ensure that we have this plot